This is a picture of me with my mom and my dad. My parents are doing what's called the India stare. It's where you look directly into the camera, do not smile, and essentially show the least amount of emotion humanly possible. As you can see, my father is an expert at this. Like most parents, mine wanted me to go to school. As far as Indian parents are concerned, there's really only 3 options. You're a doctor, you're a lawyer, or you're a major disappointment. I chose the latter, and even took it a step further by majoring in English. I spent 4 years getting my bachelor's, 2 years getting my master's. I specialized in Shakespearean studies just to freak them out a little bit more. And then I decided to get my doctorate, which they were really actually excited about until I proudly announced that I would be majoring in education. So while most parents are trying to get their kids in college, my parents were desperately trying to get me out. So when I made it to my final year and classes were over, they were really, really excited. There was only one thing that I was supposed to be doing: finishing my dissertation, which of course I was not doing. Now, in my defense, I tried, but the problem was that to me, if my writing wasn't perfect, garbage. I was garbage. So I would spend weeks writing one chapter, read it, and just hit the delete button. On top of that, the extent of my social life were regular check-ins with my dissertation chair to make sure I was on track for graduation, which of course I wasn't. So the pressure was on, and I was really, really stressed out. One day, my neighbor came by to check on me, and he said, "Wow, Sadhna, you look horrible." I said, "Thank you." And he said, "Let's do something fun. Let's get you out of the house. Let's go to a comedy show." And that one innocuous night changed my life forever. We went, and I had so much fun, and I laughed so hard that when we left, I felt physically different. It was in my chest. It was like I could breathe easier. I felt lighter, even happier, and even the next day. So, of course, the professional student in me came out right away. I went back to my office, picked up my dissertation, flung it across the room, and I Googled, what does laughter do to your body? And I learned that laughter is really good for you. It reduces the stress hormone cortisol. It boosts your body's immunity or its ability to fight illness. It protects your heart, decreasing your chances of having a heart attack. Laughter is even correlated to reducing tumor sizes in cancer patients and increasing their chances of surviving. And get this, even if you're fake laughing, it's still really good for you. And so I thought, I shouldn't feel bad about not getting anywhere with my dissertation. I should go to more comedy shows. And I did. And I learned that laughter isn't just good for your body, it's good for your relationships as well. Picture a time when you said something lighthearted or funny to a group of people. Imagine the people who laughed, and imagine the people who didn't. The ones that did laugh probably felt immediately closer to you, maybe even more trustworthy. The ones that didn't laugh probably felt like the opposite, distant, perhaps even intimidating or distrustful. You see, laughter from an evolutionary standpoint indicates the break between fight and flight. When you laugh, you let other people know that it's safe and that they don't need to worry. In fact, neuroscientist and psychologist Robert Provine from the University of Maryland found that you are 30 times more likely to laugh when you're among others compared to when you're alone, indicating that there's something socially significant about the function of laughter and connection. So, in my next check-in with my dissertation chair, to make sure I was on track for graduation, which you all know I wasn't because I was just going to comedy show after comedy show, I went on and on about laughter and the way in which laughter heals the people in the audiences at these comedy shows. And I said, I have a hypothesis. If the people in the audience benefit so much from laughter, then wouldn't it make sense that the comedians benefit as well? I mean, their whole creative process is dedicated to finding the light or finding the humor in things. And on top of it, their working environments ensure that they're surrounded by laughter. And she said, Sadhna, stop going to comedy shows and finish your dissertation. And so I did what all exemplary straight A students would do in this situation. I completely disregarded her advice, packed my bags, and moved directly across the street from my favorite comedy club. I decided on a new routine. I would work on my dissertation by day, and I would work on my comedy research by night. And guess what? I was right. Stand-up comedians have been known after research study to show that they have higher IQs, higher emotional intelligence, they're better at problem solving, they're better at abstract thinking or the ability to think outside of the box, and on top of that, people even find them to be more likable and attractive. Their creative process is highly intellectual and incredibly liberating. You see, stand-up comedians are always on. Their brains are constantly scanning our worlds, looking for what's off, so they can use it in their material. And that means that they're constantly observing, learning, writing, and practicing. And once they think that their material could work and that they might be onto something, they find the courage to get up on stage and be vulnerable. And once they're up on stage, there's always one of three scenarios that will occur every single time. Scenario one, they fail. Now, this is a devastating, awkward, awful place to be, as you can imagine. We've all been there at some point in our lives. Picture a time when you said or did something embarrassing, or when you put yourself out there and you didn't get the validation that you were seeking. It can be awful. And you may have chosen to play that memory of embarrassment, shame, whatever you want to call it, in your mind over and over and over, essentially launching your own self-torture. But the wisest comedians, they completely skip that stage because they know that it's a complete waste of time. It's an emotional reaction that we all have, but what they do differently is they tap into their prefrontal cortex, or the thinking intellectual part of your brain, and they focus on one thing and one thing only. What can I take from this individual experience or this individual moment that I can actually use later in life, that will actually help me in the future? They know that standing and wallowing in that place of shame or embarrassment is a complete waste of time, so they don't do it. They'll try new jokes all the time, and when a joke doesn't hit, they'll simply say, delete that, scratch that, okay, that didn't work, move on. Second scenario, they do okay. Some jokes hit, some jokes don't. You know, it's not awesome, it's not awful. What do? The same exact thing. They reflect. They say, maybe I need to work on my material. Maybe I need to work on my delivery. But they also recognize that in life, there's some things that you can control and there's some things that you can't, inevitable variables. Maybe the drunk bachelorette party in the corner was so loud that people couldn't hear what I was saying. They couldn't hear my jokes. You see, the wisest comedians understand that life is filled with variables. And like I said, some things just come up that you just can't anticipate or control. Third scenario, they crushed it. Now, this is a really special place, as you can imagine. The comedian has essentially created a roar of laughter, a roar of positive energy. And that gives them a rush of dopamine and all the other feel-good chemicals of the brain, which they quickly become addicted to. What's interesting about this place is that it's very similar to failure. You see, when a comedian fails, they recognize that this is just one moment in their life, that they can choose to dwell on and wallow in, or they can fast forward by focusing on what they can learn from that moment, because it's just that, one moment. Now in this scenario, it's very similar in that they recognize that this is also just another moment, right? It's one night, one room, one crowd, one roar of laughter. So in this scenario, what they do is instead of fast forwarding it, they slow it down and they savor it, because they want to experience that validation, because it validates every single moment of failure prior to this experience. And so they slow it down while recognizing and keeping in the back of their mind that knowledge that if they want to feel this rush again that they are completely addicted to, they have to keep the process going by continuously focusing on what they can learn from each experience that they can use later. The fact that all three scenarios leads to the same exact place and the same exact question of what can I learn allows comedians to experience the health benefits of laughter while also rapidly increasing their intelligence at a higher rate. You see, think about this for a second. Comedians are trained to find humor or to find the light in things. So they're laughing more. And because they're laughing more, they're fearing less. And because they're fearing less, they're trying more. And because they're trying more, they create more opportunities to learn more, which inevitably means that they will continuously grow more. The moment that you get up on stage or you do something where you've failed, there's something about that that's incredibly liberating. It takes that fear away because the worst possible thing that happened has already happened. And it liberates you and allows you to create all these new opportunities to grow. And if you don't believe me, here's a chart with no data and no labels to show you the rapid way in which they grow. After interviewing more than 500 comedians, I started laughing more and I started fearing less. I finished my original dissertation on education, and I even wrote a second one simultaneously on stand-up comedy. And to be completely honest with you, after I started this research, it's like both dissertations wrote themselves. But most importantly, aside from graduating and finishing that accolade in my career, I started fast-forwarding the self-torture and embarrassment and nonsense, and I started slowing down and savoring those moments of pure joy. And get this, I even got my parents to break their India stares. Thank you.